To protect Mr. Lander
Yes.
and his family. Do you think you let him down?
In a sense, Mr. Orlando, if he were to be alive or any of his relations, will feel that the UN let him down. But I think the force that we put there did what was expected of them.
Not only did the UN fail to protect the politicians, some of its troops were unable to protect themselves. 10 Belgian soldiers were tricked into giving up their weapons only to be attacked by an angry mob. The soldiers were tortured and horribly mutilated before they were killed. It was all part of a strategy.
The Rwandans who were planning a genocide, the Hutu extremists around the president, they said, look, if we kill some of them, they'll go away. That was in the fax that was sent to UN headquarters. It was predicted that they were planning to kill some Belgians, and sure enough, on the morning after the president's assassination, they killed these blue helmets.
My men were horrified because they thought it should have been his mission, and they suddenly discovered it was a nightmare.
And was your reaction immediately to think we must get out of Rwanda?
Certainly not, because as soldiers, we have to be ready to die at any moment.
But in Belgium, the shocked government was planning to pull all its troops out of Rwanda. In a secret attempt to save face, its foreign ministry lobbied countries on the Security Council, asking them to vote to withdraw the whole UN force.
I recall getting a phone call from a colleague of mine in Prague who got a call from the Belgian foreign minister lobbying him, or lobbying the Czech Republic through him, that we should act to pull UNAMIR out of Rwanda.
So they were even phoning up civil servants in foreign capitals?
Well, they were
saying, all get out.
Well, my sense is that they were phoning the ranking officer of every foreign service, of every foreign ministry of the 15 countries.
Is this normal?
Oh, I would say that it's highly unusual. I have never heard anything of the sort before.
In Washington, American officials were only too ready to listen to Belgian pleas to close UNAMIR down. After Somalia, the military was suspicious of all UN peacekeeping operations, and the death...
Under the UN, you get your throat cut, you get mutilated, you can't defend yourself, you're put in harm's way with no way of defending yourself. And this is another reason why you wouldn't want to get identified with a UN operation. It's just a horrible example of a UN operation.
In New York, at the American mission to the UN, headed by Ambassador Madeleine Albright, the reaction was much the same.
What were your instructions, or what was the attitude of your superiors at the UN mission?
The general attitude was that we now have to close down the operation.
Close it down?
Close it down.
Close it down even though that's what the Hutu extremists, the killers, had wanted you to think?
In retrospect, it's clear that that's, in fact, what they intended to happen. But if peacekeepers are in jeopardy and you don't have the capacity to protect them, then the Security Council must do the responsible thing, which is to withdraw the peacekeepers from harm's way.
At the school of Don Bosco, the peacekeepers were still saving lives. 1,000 refugees had now taken shelter here. The niece of the murdered politician Lando had been sent by her parents, who believed here surely there were enough UN soldiers to protect her.
We didn't feel in danger at all, because we could see that the blue berets were with us. We weren't worried at all. We felt really safe and secure.
They thought they'd be safe with the United Nations?
Yes, they should be protected by the United Nations troops.
So they came there to find safety?
Certainly, yes.
Frontline has learned that the UN's men on the ground did signal the plight of Tutsi civilians to the Secretariat in New York. As early as the second day of the killings, a secret cable warned that ordinary people were being targeted simply because of their ethnic origin.
All UNAMIR camps have sheltered civilians, terrified by the ruthless campaign of ethnic cleansing and terror. But in New York, once more, a crucial warning went unheeded.
Rather than telling the Security Council the violence was ethnic cleansing, the Secretariat described it as a breakdown in the ceasefire, much easier to dismiss as an internal matter for Rwanda.
Surely it wasn't very difficult to realize that this could be the start of an unfolding genocide.
No, at that time, well, it may not have been very difficult, and maybe we made a second mistake, but certainly in the first few days, neither the people on the ground, except for that one sentence, or we here, knew that this was a planned genocide.
It's extraordinary, at the least, that those who were charged with maintaining the Rwanda mission at the UN can now plead that they didn't recognize what was going on. It was murky, but this was not a top secret program. The signs were on the surface. They were on the radio. They were in the newspapers. You could buy them at any street corner. You could hear them at any rally. You didn't have to go looking.
By the 11th of April, 4 days after the genocide began, the Red Cross was estimating that tens of thousands had already been killed in Rwanda. At Don Bosco, the killers continued to flaunt themselves in front of their prey. By April 11th, 2,000 civilians had taken refuge in the school. But with the Belgian campaign to get UNAMIR out of Rwanda close to success, everyone realized the troops might leave, and the refugees now made a remarkable request of Captain Lemaire.
They were afraid to be murdered by the machetes. When they heard we could leave in the following days, they said, please don't do that. If you have to leave, please, we ask you to be shot down by your machine gun. They'd rather be shot down by a machine gun than being murdered by machetes.
Sooner a United Nations bullet than a machete.
That's it.
That afternoon, the Belgian soldiers left Don Bosco. Their commanders had ordered them to withdraw to the airport. When the refugees realized they were being abandoned, they began to crowd around the last of the departing UN vehicles.
All of the refugees are running in front of the trucks in order to stop them leaving. And I remember hanging onto a UNAMIR truck and asking the soldier, are you really abandoning us? We'll all be killed. Why are you leaving?
Pourquoi partez-vous?
I was obliged to fire in the air to open the path to the last vehicle, because the Rwandese people are there on the vehicle.
So you were firing into the air to clear a path?
Yes.
Through the refugees. Was that the first time you'd fired your weapon in Rwanda?
Yes, it was the first time.
After we heard those shots in the air, we were frightened, because it was as if it were a signal to show the Interahamwe that they had gone, so that they could come in and kill everyone.
So what can you say to the parents of a young girl who put her under the protection of the United Nations, only for you to abandon her?
I cannot say anything, because it was so, and we had no choice.
As the Belgian soldiers drove away, the killers moved in. The fate of the refugees would not be known for several days. In the first days of the genocide, the Clinton administration was focused not on the Tutsis, but on what was happening to the 255 Americans.